The Insight Views. Behind the Mask, The Dark Secrets of John Edward Robinson. The quiet streets of small-town America often harbor secrets that no one dares to imagine. On the surface, life moves with the predictable rhythm of work, school, and neighborhood chatter. But behind the unassuming facades of ordinary homes, darkness can fester, hidden from the world's gaze. Few could have suspected that one man, living seemingly ordinary, had woven a web of deceit, manipulation, and unspeakable crime over decades. This is the story of John Edward Robinson, a man whose crimes would shock the nation and redefine what it meant to hunt and deceive in the digital age. Born on December 27, 1943, in the modest town of Indiana, Robinson grew up in an environment that appeared normal, but was layered with complexities that would later shape his behavior. As a child, he was described as quiet, often keeping to himself, a boy who blended into the background. Yet, beneath that unassuming exterior lay a mind that craved control, power, and recognition, desires that, over time, would manifest in chilling ways. Family members would later recall his charm and intelligence, qualities that masked a more sinister potential. These traits, coupled with an uncanny ability to manipulate, became the tools he would employ in his decades-long spree of crimes. Robinson's early adulthood was marked by ambition and a desire for social mobility. He sought careers that afforded him status and financial stability, navigating the mundane with an air of normalcy. Yet even in these early stages, the pattern of deceit began to emerge. He would assume false identities, forge documents, and manipulate others into trusting him implicitly. Friends and acquaintances could not have predicted the path he would eventually take, but hindsight reveals that the seeds of his criminal genius were sown early. In the late 1970s and into the 1980s, Robinson's actions escalated from petty deceit and fraud into more serious criminal behavior. He became increasingly adept at exploiting vulnerabilities in those around him, particularly women seeking companionship, emotional connection, or financial support. He was methodical, careful, and calculating, traits that would later make him exceptionally difficult to track. Many of his victims initially perceived him as generous and trustworthy, never suspecting the danger lurking beneath the polished exterior. By the 1980s, Robinson had fully embraced a life of deception and manipulation. He cultivated a persona of success and charm, often presenting himself as a wealthy businessman or a devoted partner. These carefully constructed identities allowed him to gain access to victims' homes, finances, and trust. Using these means, he began committing a range of crimes that included theft, fraud, and sexual assault. Each act was committed with meticulous attention to detail, minimizing the risk of discovery, while maximizing the control he exerted over his victims. As technology advanced, Robinson adapted. He became one of the first known serial killers to exploit the internet, using it as a tool to locate and ensnare his victims. In the 1990s, the online world was still largely unregulated, a digital frontier filled with individuals seeking connection. Robinson leveraged this environment with precision. He would post personal ads, respond to women seeking companionship, and lure them into his orbit under the guise of friendship, romance, or mentorship. Once engaged, he would manipulate these women, isolating them from friends and family, and ultimately exerting control that allowed him to commit acts of violence with chilling impunity. The scope of Robinson's crimes was vast, spanning multiple states, and involving numerous victims. Investigators later discovered that he maintained detailed records of his manipulations and deceptions, cataloging the people he had ensnared, and the methods he used to control them. His home, outwardly ordinary, became a hidden lair filled with evidence of his dark obsession. Files, photographs, and personal items of his victims were meticulously organized, a testament to the calculated nature of his predations. Robinson's ability to evade detection for so long was a combination of his intelligence, charm, and the trust he cultivated. Authorities would describe him as exceptionally methodical, often striking with precision, and then retreating into anonymity. His crimes were not impulsive, they were carefully planned, executed, and concealed. Each victim represented an opportunity to assert dominance, to satisfy a compulsion that had deep roots in his psyche. The eventual unraveling of Robinson's criminal empire came as a result of both chance and persistence. Investigators, piecing together disparate reports of missing women, fraudulent identities, and suspicious disappearances, began to notice patterns that pointed toward a single orchestrator. His reliance on manipulation and deceit, once his greatest asset, became a vulnerability. Former victims, family members, and even casual acquaintances began to provide information that would ultimately expose the breadth of his crimes. Robinson's arrest marked the beginning of a complex legal battle. Authorities faced the challenge of compiling evidence from multiple states, verifying identities, and reconstructing a timeline that spanned decades. The trial itself became a spectacle, drawing national attention as the horrific details of his actions were laid bare. Prosecutors presented a narrative of meticulous cruelty, highlighting both the psychological and physical control he exerted over his victims. Witnesses recounted harrowing tales of manipulation, isolation, and abuse, painting a portrait of a man who had mastered the art of deception. Psychologists and criminal profilers analyzing Robinson described him as a master manipulator with traits consistent with psychopathy. He exhibited a profound lack of empathy, a desire for control, and an ability to charm and disarm those around him. His intelligent and meticulous planning allowed him to exploit social and technological systems in ways previously unseen. Experts noted that his use of online communication to locate and manipulate victims represented a new frontier in criminal behavior, one that would serve as a chilling blueprint for future offenders. Despite the dark nature of his actions, Robinson's case also highlighted the resilience and bravery of his victims and the investigators who pursued justice. Law enforcement faced numerous obstacles, from fragmented reports to limited resources, yet persistence and collaboration ultimately led to his conviction. The legal process, though grueling, served as a mechanism to both expose the truth and hold him accountable for the lives he had shattered. Robinson's convictions encompassed multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, and fraud, resulting in lengthy prison sentences. Each charge reflected a pattern of premeditation, manipulation, and cruelty, ensuring that he would spend the remainder of his life confined. The courtroom proceedings, though focused on legal facts, also provided a window into the psychological complexity of his crimes. Experts testified to the chilling normalcy with which he conducted his actions, emphasizing the danger posed by individuals who can mask malevolence with outward charm. In the years following his conviction, Robinson remained a figure of intense study for criminologists, psychologists, and law enforcement. His case has been cited in discussions of internet safety, manipulative behavior, and the evolving nature of serial predation in the digital age. By understanding the mechanisms of his deception, experts hope to prevent similar crimes and educate the public about the signs of manipulative predators. The story of John Edward Robinson serves as a grim reminder that evil can often hide behind familiar faces and ordinary lives. His ability to manipulate, deceive, and commit horrific crimes over decades underscores the importance of vigilance, both online and offline. The victims he left behind, their families, and the investigators who pursued justice continue to be the living testament to the consequences of unchecked malevolence. Robinson's life, crimes, and ultimate downfall form a narrative that is both cautionary and compelling. It challenges viewers to consider the depths of human deceit, the resilience of those who survive, and the ongoing need for awareness in a world where predators may lurk behind the most unsuspecting masks. As the digital age continues to evolve, the lessons of John Edward Robinson remain profoundly relevant. His story is not just a chronicle of crime, but a case study in psychology, law enforcement, and the darker capacities of the human mind. By studying his methods, behaviors, and manipulations, society gains critical insight into the warning signs of predation and the ways in which vigilance and persistence can ultimately triumph over even the most calculated evil. This is the story of a man who lived among us, invisible in plain sight, yet capable of unspeakable horrors. It is a story of deception, control, and the pursuit of justice, a narrative that compels us to look beyond appearances and confront the uncomfortable truth that darkness often wears a friendly face. As Robinson's web of deception expanded, he became increasingly brazen in his selection of victims. Women, often seeking companionship or a fresh start, were drawn to him through personal ads and online messages. Each interaction was carefully orchestrated. Robinson would study his targets, learning their habits, fears, and desires, before carefully crafting an approach that made him appear trustworthy and dependable. His charm and apparent empathy disarmed his victims, masking the predator that lurked beneath. One of his earliest known victims, a woman from Missouri, met Robinson through personal ads. She described him as attentive, generous, and seemingly sincere. Yet, over time, the relationship became increasingly controlling. He isolated her from friends and family, gradually asserting dominance through subtle psychological manipulation. When she resisted, threats and intimidation followed, a hallmark of his escalating tactics. This case, like many others, illustrates Robinson's methodical approach. He did not strike impulsively but cultivated trust, only to later exploit it to devastating effect. Robinson's crimes were not limited to emotional manipulation. His methods included physical assault, sexual violence, and ultimately murder. Over time, investigators discovered that he meticulously documented his crimes, maintaining files that detailed the identities of his victims, the methods used to lure them, and the outcomes of his interactions. These records, once uncovered, painted a chilling picture of a man who viewed human lives as objects, to be controlled and catalogued. The 1990s brought a technological revolution that Robinson adapted to with uncanny skill. As the internet became more accessible, he saw opportunities to reach a wider pool of potential victims. He was among the first known serial predators to exploit digital communication for criminal purposes. Through online forums, chat rooms, and personal ads, he could contact women across states, weaving narratives that positioned him as a benefactor, mentor, or a romantic partner. The anonymity of the internet provided a shield, allowing him to operate with reduced risk of detection, while maintaining his facade of normalcy. Among the women he targeted during this period was a young single mother seeking a fresh start. Robinson presented himself as a successful businessman willing to assist her in finding stability. She, like many others, was drawn to his apparent kindness. Yet the encounter quickly turned dangerous. He gradually manipulated her into trust, isolating her from support networks, and controlling her decisions. Though she eventually survived, her testimony would become a critical piece in constructing the case against Robinson, providing law enforcement with insights into his manipulative techniques. Another case involved a woman in her late 20s, who met Robinson through a personal advertisement. He presented himself as a generous and charming figure, capable of solving her financial struggles. Over weeks, he ingratiated himself into her life, gaining access to her home and personal information. Ultimately, he used this knowledge to exert psychological and physical control. While she managed to escape, the trauma left lasting scars and contributed to the growing pattern of evidence that authorities were beginning to piece together. Robinson's most heinous acts occurred when he escalated from manipulation to murder. He would select victims whom he perceived as vulnerable, often those who were isolated, trusting, or financially insecure. The process was methodical. He would cultivate a relationship, gain trust, then exploit weaknesses to ensure compliance. His killings were calculated, designed to remove perceived threats, silence witnesses, or fulfill a compulsion for control. The precision with which he executed these crimes demonstrated both his intelligence and his lack of empathy, traits that experts would later identify as hallmarks of psychopathy. Investigators faced immense challenges in connecting the dots between these crimes. Robinson's mobility, use of multiple identities, and careful concealment of evidence created a labyrinthine trail. Yet law enforcement was persistent. As reports of missing women accumulated, patterns began to emerge. Authorities noted similarities in the backgrounds of the victims, the methods by which they were approached, and the circumstances surrounding their disappearances. These patterns ultimately led to an understanding that the crimes were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger, coordinated series of offenses orchestrated by a single individual. A breakthrough came when investigators discovered physical evidence linking Robinson to multiple victims. In his home, they found belongings, personal effects, and detailed records of interactions with women who had vanished under suspicious circumstances. Each file was meticulously maintained, reflecting not only his obsessive attention to detail, but also the premeditated nature of his crimes. The discovery shocked law enforcement and the public alike, revealing a criminal mind that had operated undetected for decades. The psychological profile constructed by experts highlighted the complexity and danger of Robinson's behavior. He exhibited classic traits of a manipulative predator: charm, intelligence, meticulous planning, and a complete absence of empathy. He could adapt to circumstances, alter his approach based on victim behavior, and maintain a facade of normalcy that concealed his malevolence. His crimes were deliberate, each action calculated to maximize control, while minimizing the risk of exposure. Robinson's capture marked a turning point in the investigation. Law enforcement, armed with witness testimony, physical evidence, and emerging digital records, were finally able to build a comprehensive case. Arresting him was not a simple matter. He had constructed a life that appeared ordinary, with neighbors and colleagues unaware of his dark double life. Yet the persistence of detectives, the courage of survivors, and advances in investigative techniques converged to bring him to justice. Once in custody, Robinson's behavior revealed further insights into his character. He remained composed, often polite, but manipulative, attempting to control conversations and influence perceptions. Law enforcement noted his calm demeanor as both unnerving and revealing. Even when confronted with the full weight of evidence, he maintained a sense of control, demonstrating the psychological traits that had enabled him to commit his crimes for so long. The subsequent trial was a national spectacle. Prosecutors presented evidence meticulously gathered over years, detailing the extent of his manipulations, assaults, and murders. Survivors and witnesses recounted harrowing experiences, exposing the pattern of deceit and control that had characterized Robinson's interactions. The courtroom became a stage upon which the horrors of his crimes were laid bare, a testament to both his cunning and the resilience of those who survived. Throughout the trial, forensic psychologists provided testimony on Robinson's psychological profile, emphasizing the combination of intelligence, charm, and psychopathy that defined his criminal behavior. Their analysis explained how he had been able to evade detection for so long, and how his calculated approach differed from impulsive or opportunistic criminals. This expert testimony underscored the danger of individuals capable of sustained manipulation, particularly in an era where technology provided new avenues for predation. Convictions were secured on multiple counts of murder, sexual assault, and fraud. Each conviction reflected the systematic nature of his crimes, ensuring that Robinson would face the full consequences of his actions. The sentences imposed were designed not only to punish, but also to signal the seriousness of crimes that exploit trust, vulnerability, and human connection. Even after his conviction, Robinson's case continued to resonate. Criminologists and law enforcement agencies studied his methods, drawing lessons for preventing future crimes. His use of the internet to locate and manipulate victims, once unprecedented, became a focal point in understanding the evolving risks posed by digital communication. Public awareness campaigns and survivor advocacy drew on his case to educate the population about the signs of manipulation and the importance of vigilance. The story of John Edward Robinson is not solely a tale of crime, it is also a study of human behavior, psychology, and resilience. His actions forced society to confront uncomfortable truths about deception, trust, and the potential for evil to hide in plain sight. Survivors' accounts, coupled with investigative findings, highlight both the destructive power of manipulation and the capacity for courage in the face of terror. Through detailed examination of his life and crimes, Robinson's case provides critical insights into the nature of predatory behavior. It underscores the importance of careful scrutiny, the value of thorough investigation, and the necessity of educating the public about the warning signs of manipulation and control. By understanding the mechanisms he employed, society gains tools to prevent similar tragedies in the future. The lessons drawn from Robinson's life are stark but essential. Evil can exist in seemingly ordinary settings, and the capacity for manipulation can be amplified by intelligence and charm. The internet, while a valuable tool for communication, can also serve as a vehicle for predation if vigilance is not maintained. Awareness, education, and persistence remain key defenses against those who seek to exploit trust for their own ends. Robinson's crimes, trials, and ultimate imprisonment form a cautionary tale, a reminder that appearances can be deceiving, that charm can conceal malevolence, and that the pursuit of justice requires dedication, courage, and perseverance. His story compels us to question the familiar, to look beyond the surface, and to confront the darker aspects of human behavior that exist alongside the ordinary rhythms of everyday life. As the 1990s progressed, Robinson's crimes escalated both in frequency and audacity. His meticulous planning became increasingly refined, and he began to target women from a wider geographic area. By now, he had fully embraced the digital frontier, using email, online forums, and personal ads to identify and engage potential victims. His understanding of human psychology allowed him to craft messages that appeared empathetic and genuine, yet concealed hidden threats and manipulations. Each victim was carefully chosen, each encounter scripted to ensure his control. One particularly harrowing case involved a young woman who had relocated to start anew after personal hardships. Robinson, under a fabricated identity, offered her employment and housing assistance. His ability to appear trustworthy, combined with carefully rehearsed stories of personal struggles and triumphs, disarmed her skepticism. Over weeks, he wove himself into her life, isolating her from external support and subtly undermining her confidence. When he sensed any resistance, he applied calculated psychological pressure, demonstrating his mastery over fear and compliance. The patterns of his crimes began to draw attention, albeit slowly. Local authorities noted similarities in the circumstances surrounding several missing women, yet it took collaboration across jurisdictions to connect the pieces. Robinson's geographic mobility, combined with his use of aliases and digital communication, complicated investigative efforts. However, dedicated detectives began to compile a composite image of the perpetrator, a man of intelligence, charm, and an unsettling lack of empathy, whose crimes were methodical rather than impulsive. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered tangible links between Robinson and several disappearances. Physical evidence in his residence, including personal items from missing women, combined with witness testimony from survivors, painted a damning portrait. It was evident that Robinson had meticulously documented his victims, often maintaining photographs, notes, and detailed descriptions of their interactions. This obsessive record-keeping, once uncovered, provided critical insight into both his methods and his mindset. Robinson's arrest was executed with precision, a reflection of the caution law enforcement had learned was necessary in dealing with him. Even when confronted with authorities, he remained outwardly composed, demonstrating the same calm manipulative demeanor he had exhibited with his victims. His ability to maintain control, even in the face of overwhelming evidence, highlighted the psychological traits that had enabled him to evade detection for so long. Once in custody, the interrogation process revealed further details about his crimes. Robinson spoke in measured tones, often redirecting questions, offering partial truths, and attempting to frame events in ways that minimized his culpability. Investigators recognized these tactics as classic manipulative behaviors. He sought to dominate the narrative, just as he had sought to dominate his victims. Despite these efforts, the overwhelming body of evidence left little room for doubt regarding his guilt. The trial of John Edward Robinson captivated the nation. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the evidence, demonstrating the extent of his criminal enterprise. They highlighted his manipulations, the premeditated nature of his killings, and the exploitation of digital communications to identify and entrap victims. The courtroom became a theater of horror, as survivors recounted the psychological and physical abuse they endured. Their testimony was both harrowing and vital, providing a human dimension to the cold, calculated actions documented by law enforcement. Throughout the proceedings, forensic psychologists offered expert insights into Robinson's behavior. They described him as a master manipulator with traits consistent with psychopathy, a lack of empathy, superficial charm, and an obsessive need for control. His ability to exploit emotional vulnerabilities, combined with intelligent and meticulous planning, created a formidable predatory profile. These analyses underscored why his crimes had persisted undetected for decades, and highlighted the particular dangers posed by individuals capable of sustained, calculated manipulation. The courtroom evidence extended beyond witness testimony. Investigators presented detailed records from Robinson's residence, including photographs, personal belongings of victims, and written accounts documenting interactions. Each piece of evidence reinforced the pattern of control, exploitation, and premeditation that defined his criminal career. The jury, confronted with the overwhelming documentation, the compelling survivor accounts, and expert psychological analysis, moved steadily toward conviction. Robinson was ultimately found guilty on multiple counts, encompassing murder, sexual assault, and fraud. The sentencing reflected the severity and premeditated nature of his crimes, ensuring that he would spend the remainder of his life incarcerated. While justice was served, the courtroom proceedings left a lasting impression on both those present and the wider public. The meticulous nature of his crimes, combined with the cruelty and psychological manipulation he employed, underscored the depths of human malevolence. Following his conviction, Robinson became a subject of intense study. Criminologists and law enforcement officials examined his methods to better understand the evolving nature of predatory behavior. His pioneering use of the internet as a tool to manipulate and ensnare victims highlighted vulnerabilities in digital communication that were previously unrecognized. By dissecting his tactics, experts sought to educate the public, improve investigative methods, and prevent future tragedies. Psychological analysis of Robinson's behavior emphasized the interplay between intelligence, charm, and psychopathy. He was able to project a facade of normalcy while orchestrating acts of cruelty and violence. This duality, the contrast between outward appearance and inner depravity, became a key focus in understanding the mechanics of his crimes. Experts highlighted his ability to read people, anticipate reactions, and exploit emotional weaknesses, a skill set that made him both dangerous and elusive. Beyond the immediate criminal implications, Robinson's case had broader societal impact. Public awareness campaigns highlighted the risks of online communication, particularly for vulnerable populations seeking connection. Advocacy organizations drew on the lessons of his crimes to develop educational materials, teach recognition of manipulative behaviors, and encourage reporting of suspicious activities. His case became a touchstone for discussions about the intersection of technology, trust, and predation. The survivors of Robinson's crimes demonstrated remarkable resilience. Many struggled with lasting psychological trauma, yet their courage in coming forward was instrumental in securing justice. Their stories provided crucial evidence, humanizing the investigation, and illustrating the profound impact of manipulation and violence. Through their testimony, the public gained insight not only into the mechanics of Robinson's crimes, but also into the strength required to confront such a predator. Robinson's life story is also a study in duality, the outwardly ordinary man versus the hidden monster. To neighbors, colleagues, and casual acquaintances, he appeared respectable, reliable, and even kind. Yet beneath this veneer a calculated, manipulative individual whose primary objective was control and domination. This contrast serves as a stark reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that evil often hides in plain sight. His case has continued to influence law enforcement approaches to predatory behavior, techniques for tracking digital communication, cross-jurisdictional collaboration, and profiling manipulative offenders have all drawn lessons from Robinson's crimes. By understanding the patterns he exploited, emotional vulnerability, isolation, and trust, authorities have been able to better protect potential victims and anticipate emerging threats. Even decades later, the psychological legacy of Robinson's crimes remains instructive. His actions illustrate the ways in which intelligence, charm, and manipulative skill can be weaponized. They also highlight the importance of vigilance, both individually and institutionally, in recognizing and responding to the warning signs of predatory behavior. His story is not merely historical, it remains relevant as technology evolves, and new forms of manipulation emerge. The dark narrative of John Edward Robinson concludes, not with his deeds unpunished, but with the illumination of the methods he employed, and the resilience of those who survived. Justice, though delayed, was ultimately achieved through the dedication of law enforcement, the courage of survivors, and the thoroughness of investigators who refused to ignore patterns that others might have dismissed. Robinson's story is a cautionary tale. It demonstrates that human behavior is complex, that malevolence can hide behind ordinary appearances, and that intelligence and charm, when combined with a lack of empathy, can create extraordinary danger. It also underscores the importance of perseverance in the pursuit of justice, the value of survivor testimony, and the critical role of psychological understanding in criminal investigations. Through examination of Robinson's life and crimes, society gains critical insight into the intersection of human psychology, technological opportunity, and manipulative predation. His actions forced a re-evaluation of assumptions about safety, trust, and vulnerability, particularly in the digital age. The lessons drawn from his case continue to inform policy, education, and public awareness initiatives aimed at preventing similar tragedies. Following his conviction, John Edward Robinson was sentenced to multiple life terms, ensuring that he would never again pose a threat to society. Yet the conclusion of his legal battles did not mark the end of the story. For law enforcement, criminologists, psychologists, and the public, Robinson's crimes offered a rare and disturbing case study in the mechanics of manipulation, predation, and the dark potential of human intelligence when combined with psychopathy. In the years after his incarceration, Robinson became a focal point for academic and professional studies. Criminologists analyzed his methods to understand how a predator could operate undetected for decades. Psychologists examined his personality, noting traits consistent with high-functioning psychopathy, superficial charm, strategic manipulation, lack of empathy, and an obsession with control. His ability to maintain normalcy while committing heinous crimes was particularly alarming, illustrating the duality that makes some predators especially dangerous. Robinson's use of technology to facilitate his crimes has had lasting implications. He was among the first known serial killers to exploit the internet to locate and manipulate victims. His actions highlighted vulnerabilities inherent in digital communication, particularly in forums and personal ads where trust is assumed. Today, his case is referenced in discussions about online safety, cybercrime, and the psychological tactics used by predators to exploit human trust. It serves as both a cautionary tale and a benchmark for law enforcement protocols in the digital age. The impact on survivors and families of victims was profound. Many struggled with trauma, grief, and lingering fear long after Robinson's arrest. Yet their resilience became a central element in understanding the human consequences of manipulation and violence. Survivors' testimony not only aided the prosecution, but also served as a critical reminder of the importance of giving voice to those affected. Their experiences have informed support systems, advocacy programs, and educational campaigns aimed at helping victims of predation and abuse. Robinson's story also reshaped investigative techniques. Law enforcement agencies recognized the importance of cross-jurisdictional communication, digital forensics, and pattern analysis. The realization that a single predator could exploit geographic mobility, digital communication, and multiple identities prompted the development of more sophisticated investigative frameworks. These changes have contributed to preventing similar crimes, highlighting the importance of lessons learned from historic cases. The psychological lessons from Robinson's life are equally significant. His combination of intelligence, charm, and lack of empathy underscores the dangers posed by individuals capable of sustained manipulation. Experts have emphasized that understanding such behavior is critical not only for law enforcement, but for the broader public. Recognizing warning signs such as isolation of victims, obsessive attention, and control tactics can provide crucial protection against predation. Public awareness campaigns, informed by Robinson's case, have stressed caution in online interactions and personal relationships. Educating communities about manipulative behavior, encouraging reporting of suspicious activity, and fostering support networks have become essential components of crime prevention strategies. The insights drawn from his crimes have shaped modern approaches to both victim support and investigative methodology. In examining Robinson's legacy, one sees a cautionary tale of duality, the outwardly ordinary man versus the hidden predator. To neighbors, colleagues, and casual acquaintances, he was unremarkable, friendly, reliable, and seemingly benign. Yet beneath this facade was a calculated manipulator, whose actions revealed the depths of human malevolence. This duality has served as a powerful lesson in vigilance, reminding society that appearances alone cannot guarantee safety. Even in prison, Robinson's case continues to inform research and policy. Studies of his methods have contributed to understanding predatory psychology, criminal manipulation, and digital risk. His crimes, while horrifying, have provided critical knowledge for preventing future incidents, emphasizing the value of studying past offenders to protect potential victims. Ultimately, the story of John Edward Robinson is a story of darkness met with resilience. It is a narrative of manipulation and violence countered by persistence, courage, and the pursuit of justice. Law enforcement, survivors, and society at large worked tirelessly to bring him to account, and in doing so, illuminated the importance of vigilance, investigation, and education. Robinson's life and crimes stand as a stark reminder that evil often hides behind ordinary facades. His methods were sophisticated, his manipulations precise, and his cruelty methodical. Yet the perseverance of those who sought justice, survivors, investigators, and experts demonstrates the human capacity to confront even the most calculated malevolence. As we reflect on the life and crimes of John Edward Robinson, the lessons are clear. Awareness, vigilance, and education are essential in recognizing and preventing predation. Technology can facilitate connection, but it can also be exploited by those with malicious intent. Understanding the psychology of manipulation and control is critical, both for law enforcement and for individuals navigating an increasingly complex social and digital world. The narrative of Robinson's crimes, capture, and conviction is more than a chronicle of horror. It is a cautionary, educational, and investigative story. It challenges society to recognize the potential for malevolence in ordinary settings, to question appearances, and to remain vigilant in the face of charm that conceals cruelty. The darkness he embodied serves as a lesson. The courage of those who exposed him serves as an inspiration. In the end, Behind the Mask, The Dark Secrets of John Edward Robinson is not just the story of one man's crimes. It is a study of human behavior, a testament to investigative diligence, and a warning of the dangers that can lurk beneath ordinary facades. It reminds us that vigilance, courage, and education are the tools that allow society to confront and overcome the most calculated and chilling forms of manipulation and violence. Though Robinson's reign of terror has ended, the lessons from his actions continue to resonate. They compel us to question, to examine, and to protect. His story will remain a dark chapter in criminal history, but one from which critical insights and protective strategies continue to emerge, ensuring that the horrors he wrought can inform a safer, more aware society. This is the final chapter of the story, a comprehensive examination of John Edward Robinson, his manipulations, his crimes, his trial, and the enduring impact of his actions on law enforcement, survivors, and society as a whole. The Insight Views. Sharper focus. Deeper insight. Uncovering stories, revealing truths. Turning headlines into understanding.